welcome to the open mic. Picture this, right? It's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, the classic hour for overthinking.
Exactly. The glow of your phone is literally the only light in the room, just illuminating your face. And you are staring at a single text message.
Just burning a hole in the screen with your eyes.
Yes. You are analyzing every single word, every punctuation mark, every tiny yellow emoji, desperately trying to figure out this binary answer.
Like, is this person dealing with a legitimate, overwhelming family crisis?
Right. Or are they utilizing this highly polite, culturally orchestrated exit strategy to just slowly back out of your life forever?
And agonizing, honestly.
It really is. So today's deep dive is opening up the floor to our open mic format, where we take real situations, real human dilemmas from out there in the wild, and we just break them down for you.
And our source material today is, well, it's a fascinating blog post I think you stumbled across online, right?
I did, yeah. It's written by this anonymous guy in his early 30s. We'll call him A for today. And he is currently stranded in the absolute thickest, foggiest, diagnostic, muddy waters you can imagine.
Truly the worst place to be.
Yeah, and it's regarding this Japanese woman he's been seeing who we'll call S. So our mission for this deep dive is to completely deconstruct what we are calling the USJ date dilemma.
I love that title, the USJ date dilemma.
It fits, right? We are going to explore this incredibly treacherous, anxiety-inducing gap between having amazing, undeniable in-person chemistry.
Which is so rare to find anyway.
Exactly. And then the agonizing ambiguity of long-distance, cross-cultural, digital communication.
Because that gap between physical presence and digital absence,
yeah,
I mean, that is where modern anxiety just breeds.
Oh, totally. It's like a petri dish for stress.
It really is.
Yeah.
What we have in this blog post is a situation where the data, like the tangible evidence of the relationship, is fundamentally contradicting itself.
Right. You have these incredibly strong positive signals from their time together in person clashing directly with the sudden, deafening digital silence.
And to really understand the psychological torment A is experiencing, we have to look at how the human brain processes that kind of severe data contradiction.
Because it doesn't handle it well, does it?
Not at all. When our lived experience does not match our current reality, the brain interprets that gap not as a social misunderstanding, but as a literal threat.
Wow, a literal threat. So let's establish the baseline of that lived experience, right? Because we have to look at exactly what A stands to lose to really understand the stakes here.
We need to look at their last in-person interaction.
Right, and here are the facts straight from his post. A and S have been talking for a few months. This isn't a fleeting single evening encounter.
There's a real foundation there.
Yeah, they have met up 3 times in Japan, but their last meetup, that was the big one. It was a full day at Universal Studios Japan, USJ.
That's a massive commitment for a date.
Huge. And Aba describes this day in just glowing terms. He says, it honestly felt amazing. She was warm. She laughed a lot. She was very comfortable around him.
All green flags so far.
Exactly. And here's the detail that completely hooked me. They wore matching hats, and they took lots of photos.
Oh, the matching hats. That's big.
Right. They even talked about going again. If someone wears matching hats with you and spends a whole day laughing on roller coasters and taking a million selfies, isn't that an undeniable, permanent green light?
You think so, yeah.
So how does a relationship go from matching hats to utter confusion? How does that happen?
Well, to answer that, we have to put those matching hats under a sociological microscope. We really have to look at the environment of a massive theme park.
Okay, let's break that down.
Because a full day at Universal Studios is not a coffee date. A coffee date is, structurally speaking, an interview.
Yeah, it lasts an hour. You can bail if you need to.
Exactly. It is a highly controlled environment where you can maintain a polite, polished, and guarded facade. A theme park requires something entirely different.
It requires, serious stamina.
Yes. You are standing in lines for hours, you are navigating massive crowds, you are dealing with sensory overload, managing hunger and thirst.
Yeah, while trying to maintain a pleasant demeanor.
Right. It is basically a stress test for compatibility. You physically cannot fake genuine enjoyment of someone's company for 10 straight hours in that environment without the cracks showing.
I'd argue it breaks down the cool factor completely. You can't be aloof and mysterious while eating a giant turkey leg and wearing a bright yellow Minion hat,
That is exactly it. That breakdown of the cool factor is a crucial psychological milestone in early dating.
Oh, really? How so?
It's the transition from impression management to actual vulnerability. Wearing matching merchandise at a theme park is a public declaration of togetherness.
Okay, that makes sense. You're visually linking yourselves.
Precisely. It is playful, it is slightly silly, and it completely strips away the guarded exterior we wear to protect our egos.
Yeah, you have to be willing to look a little goofy.
Right. So when S agreed to wear a matching hat with A, she was visually linking herself to him in front of thousands of strangers. That requires a shared sense of humor and a mutual desire to lean into the joy of the experience together.
It signals a lowering of psychological defenses.
It absolutely does.
Okay, so if the defenses were lowered, right, if they pass the 10-hour stress test, I want to push back on the very premise of A's anxiety here.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I have that kind of day with someone, I am completely secure. I am mentally booking the caterer for the wedding, you know?
You're all in.
I feel like that baseline is so high, it should insulate him against a few days of silence. Like, why doesn't it?
Well, paradoxically, the high baseline is precisely why he is suffering so acutely right now.
Wait, really? Why?
In psychology, we look at something called the contrast effect. If their date had been mediocre-like, if she had been distant, checking her phone, clearly eager to leave the park.
Then her later silence would make logical sense to him.
Exactly. His brain would say, okay, the date was a failure, she's withdrawing, this is a predictable outcome. The data would align perfectly.
But because the date was so demonstrably spectacular, because he has a physical evidence of that connection, you know, lots of photos, the subsequent silence computes as a critical error.
Yes. The contrast between the peak experience of the USJ date and the cavernous silence of the present is what causes the emotional whiplash. He is experiencing severe cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. Because he holds two completely conflicting truths at the exact same time.
Exactly right.
Truth one, she really likes me, look at the photos, look at the hats. Truth two, she isn't talking to me.
And the brain despises cognitive dissonance. It literally hates it. It wants to resolve the tension immediately, so it goes searching for clues to figure out which truth is the real one.
Wow. I want you listening to think about a time you felt entirely 100% secure in a new relationship based on a perfect day together.
Like a great feeling.
You're driving home, the radio is playing, and you just feel this warm, glowing certainty that this is it. That's the emotional high A was writing.
And the momentum from that USJ date didn't just stop at the gates of the park. It carried over powerfully into their digital communication.
Yes. Let's look at the digital trail because A brings up his impending December trip back to Japan, and he shares her direct text responses in the post.
And her engagement here is not passive at all.
Not even a little. She hits him with, December, you decided. I wonder if we can go to Universal Studios, followed by a squinting laughing emoji.
Notice the progression of her engagement there, too. It begins as a slightly tentative proposal, right? It's like, I wonder if we can go.
But it rapidly escalates.
It does.
Because her next text is, I want to go again. Winter USJ is beautiful, followed by a little pine tree emoji.
So she goes from wondering if they can go to declaring that she wants to go.
And then, when he reveals he's already taken action, she sends, you already made reservations with 2 flushed face, wide-eyed emojis.
The ones with the big open eyes and the blushing cheeks.
Yeah, those actually. And she follows that up with, I'm so looking forward to it. And that's 3 exclamation points, for the record.
Let's analyze the syntax and the digital semiotics of these messages because it's fascinating.
I'm ready. Nerd out on me.
Well, in text-based communication, punctuation and emojis basically function as the equivalent of vocal inflection and microexpressions, right?
Because we don't have tone of voice to rely on.
Exactly. So the sheer volume of exclamation points, 4 in the first text, 3 in the second, 3 in the third, that indicates high arousal and high energy.
It's the digital equivalent of leaning across the table, widening your eyes, and just speaking at a much faster clip.
Yes. She is actively co-authoring the itinerary for this future trip.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate on that third text, though. The one where she says, you already made reservations with the 2 flushed face emojis.
Okay, what's your read on it?
Well, emojis are notoriously ambiguous, right? We are trying to compress complex, nuanced human emotion into a tiny 16 by 16 pixel graphic.
That is very true.
So, does a flushed face with wide eyes show genuine surprise and delight? Or is there an element of pressure there?
Ah, I see where you're going.
Like, let's say you're dating someone, things are going well, but it's early, and suddenly they say, hey, I booked non-refundable tickets for a major trip 2 months from now.
That can be jarring.
Right. Could those wide eyes mean, oh, wow, things are moving a lot faster than I anticipated? I feel a little bit trapped.
You know, the ambiguity of emojis is a massive source of modern relational anxiety.
Hmm.
And your reading of that flushed face emoji is completely valid in a vacuum.
It can signify feeling overwhelmed, right, by someone jumping the gun.
It absolutely can. However, we have to read it in context. In linguistic analysis, we don't isolate a single morpheme or symbol. We look at the surrounding text.
Okay, so what's the anchor here?
The sentence immediately following those wide eyes is, "I'm so looking forward to it."
Ah.
The text anchors the meaning of the emoji. It frames the surprise positively. She is stating unequivocally that she is anticipating the event with pleasure.
Okay, I buy that. The context validates the excitement. And you know what these texts are functioning as for A right now?
What's that?
They are his digital receipts. While he is sitting in this current silence, he is absolutely scrolling back up his phone to look at these specific messages.
Oh, 100%. He's analyzing every pixel.
He is using them to anchor his reality.
Yeah.
He's telling himself, look at the pine tree emoji, look at the exclamation points. I'm not crazy. Her feelings were real right before the silence happened. I have the proof.
That behavior, obsessively reviewing past data when deprived of new data, is a classic hallmark of anxiety triggered by intermittent reinforcement.
Intermittent reinforcement, like slot machines. Right?
Exactly like slot machines. It's a psychological concept often used to explain why gambling is so addictive. When a reward, like a text message, is delivered unpredictably, it creates a much stronger behavioral response than if the reward is delivered consistently.
So right now, A is starved for the dopamine hit of a new message.
Yes, so he is trying to extract residual dopamine from the old messages. He is treating these texts like sacred historical documents, analyzing them for hidden meaning.
Just reading them over and over again.
But the fundamental flaw in his approach is that human behavior isn't static.
Yeah.
It is highly dynamic and deeply susceptible to external pressures.
Which brings us to the colliding force that derailed this entire train. Because life rarely happens in a vacuum.
It really doesn't.
You can have the matching hats, you can have the flawless texts, but the outside world is going to intrude. And for S, the intrusion is a massive spike in personal stress.
The real world comes crashing in.
Yeah. According to the Post, S is dealing with a significant family crisis. Her grandmother was hospitalized again. And on top of that, A notes that she is having a rough time in general.
We really need to dive deep into the neurobiology and psychology of stress responses here, specifically attachment theory.
Oh, attachment theory. I love this stuff.
It is the only way to understand her sudden behavioral shift. When humans encounter severe, threatening stress, like the hospitalization of a beloved family member, our attachment systems are activated.
This is an evolutionary thing, right? To keep us safe.
Exactly. This system developed evolutionarily to keep us close to protective figures when we are in danger. But individuals handle this activation very differently based on their attachment style.
Right. There are generally two camps, right? The people who reach out and the people who pull away.
Broadly speaking, yes. The first group utilizes what we call hyperactivating strategies. When their stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline spike, their instinct is to seek proximity.
They want to be closer to people.
Yes. They want to talk it out. They crave physical affection. They text more frequently. They use the relationship to co-regulate their nervous system. For them, the relationship is the life raft.
I am definitely in that camp. Like, no question. If my life is falling apart, I am group texting my friends, I am calling my mom, I am leaning heavily on my partner. I want to externalize the stress.
That's very common. But the second group, however, utilizes deactivating strategies. And based on the blog post, S clearly falls into this category.
Okay, so what happens in the brain of a deactivator?
Well, for a deactivator, when the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which controls the body's stress response, is flooded with cortisol, their psychological bandwidth narrows drastically.
They just shut down.
The idea of communicating, of maintaining a social facade, of managing someone else's emotional needs or expectations, it feels like an overwhelming, impossible demand on a depleted system.
Wow. So they just can't do it.
They physically and emotionally need to retreat, conserve energy, and deal with the threat alone. For someone employing deactivating strategies, a text message isn't a lifeline. It is a hostile demand for energy they do not have.
Oh, that's wild. So a text asking, how are you holding up, isn't perceived as support, it's perceived as a chore.
Exactly. It's just another item on a to-do list they're already failing to manage.
That reframes everything.
And crucially, A drops a very specific piece of context in his post. He notes that S has a known established history of disappearing when she gets overwhelmed.
Right. He cites that she has done this during past travels and during exams.
Yes.
And this is where I have to challenge A's entire reaction to this situation.
Okay, challenge away.
If he knows this about her, if he has literally witnessed her perform this exact vanishing act before during something as mundane and predictable as school exams, shouldn't he just trust the pattern?
You'd think that would bring comfort, but
Right. Why is he panicking and writing a blog post? It seems like a simple math equation. She hides when she's stressed. She's currently stressed, therefore she is hiding. Why is he catastrophizing?
because you have to factor in the distinction between acute stress and chronic stress, and you have to weigh the current stakes of the relationship.
Okay, expand on that.
Yes, past behavior is an excellent predictor of future behavior. A knows she withdraws, but disappearing during university exams is fundamentally different than disappearing during a medical crisis.
Because exams end.
Exactly. Exams are a predictable, time-bound stressor. You know exactly when finals week begins and when it ends. The stress has a clear expiration date.
Right, you can say, I'll talk to you on Friday at 5 p.m. when my last test is over.
Precisely. But a grandmother being repeatedly hospitalized, that is open-ended. It involves grief, unpredictability, and existential fear.
It's just heavy.
It is acute trauma layered on top of chronic stress. The expiration date is unknown. And furthermore, look at the stakes from A's perspective.
The upcoming trip.
Right. Disappearing when they were casually chatting months ago is one thing. Disappearing when he has a major international trip booked to Japan in December feels infinitely more threatening.
Yeah, that makes sense. The pressure is on.
The pressure on her is higher, and the anxiety for him is higher. The old pattern is repeating, but the volume is turned all the way up, and the structural integrity of the relationship is being tested under far more weight.
That makes a lot of sense. The sheer unpredictability of the timeline is what's breaking him down.
Complete.
And this clash between her deeply ingrained neurobiological pattern of hiding when stressed and his very understandable human need for some baseline level of reassurance that leads us to the inciting incident at the blog post.
Yes, the catalyst for his anxiety.
The check-in text.
The fulcrum upon which this entire dilemma balances, really.
So after a few days of total silence, A decides he can't just wait passively. He reaches out. It's been 4 days since this exchange happened at the time of his writing.
A very long 4 days for him, I'm sure.
Right. He sent her a message just to check that everything was okay with her grandmother, and S actually replied.
Let's conduct a forensic linguistic analysis of this single text message, because every single word and character is doing incredibly heavy lifting here.
Okay, here is her exact reply. Actually, my grandma was hospitalized again, followed by the exhausted face emoji. Things are a bit crazy right now. I'll message you again later, followed by the bowing emoji.
Let's start with the very first word, actually.
Why actually? I didn't even notice that word.
Because that single word serves an incredibly important function. It validates A's intuition.
Oh, wow.
It confirms that his internal alarm bells were correct. Something was wrong. It wasn't just him being overly anxious or needy.
It justifies his decision to break the silence and check on her.
Exactly. It's not a dismissive, hey, sorry, I'm busy watching Netflix. It's an acknowledgement that the worst-case scenario he was worried about is, in fact, happening.
And then she uses that exhausted face emoji, the one with the X-shaped eyes and the open frown, and she follows it with, things are a bit crazy right now.
This is a direct confirmation of her state of overwhelm. She's explicitly communicating that her bandwidth is exhausted.
She's basically saying, I am empty right now.
Right. She is providing the context for her previous silence and setting the stage for her continued absence.
Now let's look at the end of the text. She uses the bowing emoji, the little person kneeling on the ground with their head down, hands forward.
The dogiza emoji.
Yeah. In American texting, we might just drop a sorry or a folded hands prayer emoji. But culturally, in Japan, this specific symbol representing the dojiza carries immense weight, doesn't it?
It does. The dojiza is a profound cultural posture. Historically, it is used to show the utmost deference, to make a deep apology for a significant transgression, or to request a massive favor.
It's not just a casual, my bad.
Not at all. By using the dojiza emoji, she is acknowledging a failure to uphold her end of the social contract. In a relationship, there is a baseline expectation of communication.
Right, you're supposed to talk to each other.
She is communicating that she knows she is violating that expectation. She takes responsibility for the burden it places on him, and she is asking for his grace and understanding.
It is a highly formal, deeply respectful way to say, I am failing you right now, and I am sorry.
Exactly.
Look, I tend to be an optimist when it comes to human behavior, right? I look at this text and I see a massive silver lining.
Let's hear the optimistic take.
She actually replied. She didn't leave him on read. She didn't ghost him. In the modern dating landscape where people disappear into the ether without a word, taking the time to send an immediate reply detailing a family emergency, complete with an apology that carries historical cultural weight, is the exact opposite of ghosting.
That's a very fair point.
If she didn't care about him at all, she would have just ignored the check-in entirely, right? Like, why put in the effort to explain the hospital if you're out?
You are absolutely correct that it is not ghosting, and it does demonstrate a baseline level of respect for A.
But I sense a however coming.
However, you have to look at the functional reality of the final sentence of that text. This is what is causing A to spiral. She says, I'll message you again later, with an exclamation point.
Right. I'll message you again later.
From a communication framework, this functions as what we call a conversational closed door.
Explain the closed door. I like that visual.
A conversational closed door is a statement that is polite, it is communicative,
Yeah.
but it firmly and unequivocally removes the agency from the other person.
It shuts down the back and forth.
Exactly. She is essentially establishing a hard boundary. She is saying, the ball is in my court, and I will hold it until I am ready. Do not contact me until I contact you. It demands that he wait indefinitely.
Oh, that's brutal.
And psychologically, for an anxious person, being placed in a waiting room where there is no clock on the wall and the door only opens from the outside, that is a form of torture.
It's agonizing because it completely paralyzes you. You lose all autonomy. You can't double text to say, thinking of you.
Nope.
You can't send a funny meme to lighten the mood. You can't ask how her day is going. If you do, you are violating the very clear boundary she just set.
You become the annoying person ignoring her boundary.
Exactly. You are just frozen in time until she decides to turn the key and open that door. And that specific phrase, I'll message you again later, is what brings us to the ultimate dilemma of this whole deep dive. This is why A went to the internet for help.
Because that phrase sits at the exact intersection of individual behavior and cultural programming.
Yes. A is paralyzed by two wildly opposing interpretations of this one sentence, and part of the problem is that he has just enough cultural knowledge to be dangerous to his own mental health.
A little knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Seriously. He knows that in Japanese dating culture, the phrase, I'll message you again later, or let's hang out again sometime, is frequently used as a polite exit strategy.
It is used to end things without a direct, messy confrontation.
The cultural soft fade.
Exactly, the soft fade.
So he is sitting on his couch, agonizing over two possibilities. Reality number one, she is genuinely overwhelmed by the medical trauma of her grandmother's hospitalization. Her deactivating attachment style has kicked in, and she desperately needs space to survive the week.
Which is highly plausible.
And reality number two, she is using this stressful situation as a highly convenient excuse to execute a soft fade, slowly pushing him out of her life without having to deal with the discomfort of a formal breakup.
This is a textbook example of the agonizing difficulty of cross-cultural communication. And it highlights a framework developed by anthropologist Edward T. Hall, the concept of high context versus low context cultures.
Oh, break that down for us.
So the United States, for example, is generally a low context culture. We rely heavily on explicit verbal communication.
We spell it out.
Exactly. If you want to break up with someone, the cultural expectation is that you say directly, I don't think this is working out. The meaning is contained entirely within the words themselves.
Right, there's no guessing.
But Japan, conversely, is a profoundly high-context culture. Communication relies heavily on implicit signals, nonverbal cues, the history of the relationship, and the shared understanding of the environment.
So you have to read between the lines.
You have to read between all the lines. The meaning is not in the words themselves, but in the context surrounding the words, and often in what is left unsaid.
So in a high-context culture, saying, I don't want to see you anymore is considered unnecessarily brutal.
Yes. It violates the concept of wa, or societal harmony. In a high-context culture, the goal is often to preserve harmony and avoid causing the other person to lose face.
Ah, keeping the peace.
Right. Therefore, they utilize the soft fade or ambiguous phrases like, I'll message you later, to signal a lack of interest without the violence of a direct rejection. They expect the other person to read the air and understand the implicit rejection.
Read the air. That's a great phrase.
It is. And this is further complicated by the concepts of Han and Taipei.
Han and Taipei. I've heard those terms before. What do they mean in this context?
Han refers to a person's true feelings and desires, like what they actually want deep down. Taipei is the behavior and opinions one displays in public, the facade required by society.
Okay, I see where this is going.
An is terrified that her text message is pure Taipei. He is worried she is maintaining a polite facade like, I'll message you later. While her Han, her true feeling, is that she wants him to leave her alone forever.
Oh man, that's rough.
When we date outside our own culture, our internal compass for navigating these nuances just spins wildly. We don't have the lifelong training to instantly distinguish between a polite blow-off and genuine distress.
It's a constant game of second-guessing. Is this a her thing or is this a Japan thing? You are constantly asking yourself, is this behavior a unique personality quirk like her established history of hiding during university exams? Or is it a strict cultural rule like the Japanese soft fade?
It's exhausting to try to figure out.
And I have to say, I am aggressively advocating for A here. I am firmly in his corner, feeling the sheer frustration of this confusion.
It's a very sympathetic position.
Because I keep going back to the USJ date. How on earth is a guy supposed to reconcile the pure, unadulterated joy of wearing matching hats on roller coasters with the cold, calculated reality of a cultural soft fade?
It's a massive cognitive leap.
Can a human being even fake that level of in-person enthusiasm if they are secretly planning to fade out later? I mean, she was texting him with flushed face emojis about his hotel reservations.
That's a very valid point.
Right. Does someone orchestrate a soft fade while actively planning a winter theme park itinerary?
Logically, no. If she were executing a premeditated soft fade, she would have started pulling away during the USJ date, or she would have given vague, non-committal answers when he brought up December.
She wouldn't have used the pine tree emoji.
She definitely would not have actively escalated the planning. But here is the critical insight about anxiety. Anxiety does not care about logic.
Oh, not even a little bit.
Anxiety is a threat detection system. And when it lacks clear data, it defaults to the most dangerous possible interpretation to force you to prepare for pain.
It wants to keep you safe by making you assume the worst.
Precisely. Notice what A is doing here. He is allowing his textbook, internet-gleaned knowledge of a broad sociological concept, Japanese dating culture, to completely override his first-hand experiential knowledge of this specific individual woman.
Wow, yeah.
He knows for an absolute fact she disappears when stressed. He has witnessed it. He knows her grandmother is hospitalized. Yet, because he read an article somewhere that I'll message you later can be a polite rejection in Japan, his brain is prioritizing the cultural stereotype over the individual behavioral pattern.
That is such a fascinating point. He's ignoring what he knows about her in favor of what he read about her culture.
Exactly. He is jumping to the worst-case scenario to brace for impact.
He is bracing for impact big time. He is curling into the fetal position emotionally. And as much as we can sit here and analyze text messages, dissect emojis, and debate the sociological merits of Edward T. Hall's communication theories.
Which is fun, but...
Right. But the reality is that A doesn't have the luxury of just pondering this indefinitely. He has a real-world deadline approaching that is forcing the issue. He is flying to Japan soon.
The physical reality is hurtling toward his digital anxiety. The timeline is fixed.
Right. And he makes a very specific point in his post that I think reveals a lot about his mindset. He says, I'm supposed to visit again, not necessarily just to see her, but for my own interests as well.
That's a crucial detail.
He is asking the internet if he should reset his expectations so he doesn't misread the situation upon arrival. He wants honest advice on how to emotionally handle this impending flight.
I really want to highlight the profound emotional maturity of A's approach here.
It's impressive.
When people are triggered by a deactivating partner, they often respond with destructive, hyperactivating behaviors. They send angry paragraphs demanding an explanation. They guilt-trip the person about their lack of communication. They try to force an interaction.
They completely blow up the relationship.
Exactly. Notice what A is not doing. He isn't plotting how to trick her into replying. He isn't punishing her for her silence. He is entirely 100% focused on managing his own internal expectations.
He is trying to calibrate his own reality before he steps off that plane.
By actively soliciting advice to see if he should accept the soft fade as a real possibility, A is engaging in a strategy called defensive pessimism.
Defensive pessimism, I like that.
He is constructing psychological armor. He is telling himself, if I walk off that plane at Narita Airport and she never speaks to me again, I need to have already processed that grief so it doesn't destroy my trip.
Right, so he can still have a good time.
Resetting his expectations isn't about giving up on her. It is a defensive strategy to protect his own enjoyment of a very expensive international journey.
I think anyone who has ever traveled can relate to this. Think about that unique brand of anxiety where you have an impending trip, maybe a vacation or a weekend away, and the anchor of your plans, the person you were supposed to meet or the event you were supposed to attend, suddenly goes completely wobbly.
Oh, it is incredibly destabilizing. It robs you of the joy of anticipation.
It ruins the whole buildup. You can't even pack your suitcase without feeling stressed. But I really have to praise A for the way he structured this trip in the first place.
Yes, the own interest part.
He ensured that this trip was for his own interests as well. That right there is the ultimate safety net for travel dating.
It really is.
If you are flying across the world only for a person you've met 3 times, you are placing a terrifying, crushing amount of pressure on that nascent connection. If she flakes, your entire purpose for being on that continent evaporates.
It's too much pressure on both people.
Exactly. But if you're flying there because you genuinely want to eat incredible ramen, explore the temples in Kyoto, hit the vintage shops in Shimokitazawa, and maybe see a girl you like, that takes the pressure off both of you.
It creates breathing room.
He built a structural safety net, and now he is just doing the mental work of deciding if he needs to deploy it.
This specific anxiety, however, it raises a much larger question about the infrastructure of long-distance relationships in the modern era.
Let's talk about that.
In a local relationship where you live in the same city, text messaging is merely a supplement to the relationship. It's a logistical tool.
Like, I'm outside.
Right. It's a way to figure out what time to meet for dinner, or to say, I'm running 5 minutes late.
Or sending a grocery list.
Exactly. The foundation of a local relationship is built on physical proximity. You observe their body language, you hear the exhaustion in their tone of voice, you notice if they look pale or stressed.
You have so much more context.
But in a long-distance relationship, text messaging isn't the supplement. It is the entire infrastructure. It bears an unnatural, tremendous amount of weight.
It's the only thing connecting you.
And because it fundamentally lacks that physical proximity, a single, slightly ambiguous text message, like I'll message you later, has the power to completely destabilize months of relationship building.
Because the text message is literally all there is. There is no body language to read. You can't see her exhausted face. You only have the exhausted face emoji.
Precisely. If they lived in the same city in Japan, A could simply drop off some soup or groceries for her grandmother, see the sheer exhaustion on S's face, give her a quick hug, and leave.
The ambiguity would vanish instantly.
He would see her reality. But across an ocean, that tiny digital text bubble becomes an informational void. And human beings cannot tolerate a void. We will fill it with our own worst fears.
So as we pull all of these threads together, we are looking at the dual realities of A's dilemma. And it is a brutal duality to sit with.
It really is.
Reality 1, S is entirely, genuinely paralyzed by the chaos of life. Her grandmother is sick, she is emotionally drained, her cortisol levels are through the roof, and she is simply utilizing her neurobiologically established coping mechanism of hiding until the storm passes.
And she fully intends to see him in December when she has the energy to be present.
Right. And then reality 2. She is executing a highly polite, culturally typical, beautifully orchestrated exit strategy to preserve Hua, and she's never going to text him again.
And the agonizing truth that A must face, and that we must face as observers analyzing his situation, is that we simply cannot know for sure until she decides to send that next message.
We just have to wait.
The data, the history, and the cultural context fully support both conclusions equally.
It's like Schrodinger's text message. The relationship is simultaneously alive and dead inside that digital box, and it will remain in that quantum state of superposition until she decides to open it.
That is a phenomenal analogy, Schrodinger's text message. And for the listener, the ultimate takeaway here is a stark reminder of the inherent flaws of digital communication.
It's so flawed.
It is a medium that actively strips away human nuance. It deletes tone, it deletes touch, it deletes context, it leaves an empty void. And what do we do with empty voids? We fill them with our own deepest insecurities, our own cultural assumptions, and our own unhealed attachment wounds.
We project our fears onto a blank digital screen, literally and figuratively. We see a conversational closed door, and we immediately assume it's locked forever instead of realizing that maybe, just maybe, the person on the other side is just taking a much-needed nap.
We try to be detectives, looking for hidden clues and punctuation marks and emoji choices, because we mistakenly believe that if we can just figure out the code, we will be safe from getting hurt.
Which brings me to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with, something for you to chew on as you go about your day. We spent this entire deep dive along with A, trying to decode these emojis, trying to analyze the cultural meaning of a single Japanese sentence, trying to crack the case using sociology and neurobiology.
We analyzed it
But
all.
I want to ask you this. What if our modern obsession with perfectly decoding someone else's digital communication is actually just a massive psychological defense mechanism?
Oh, that's a great question.
What if staring at those three exclamation points at 2 in the morning isn't actually about finding the truth? What if it's a way to avoid the deeply uncomfortable, terrifying reality that we have absolutely zero control over how other people feel about us or what they will do next?
We analyze text because analyzing feels like taking action.
Yes, it feels like control, and in reality, we're just waiting in the dark, hoping someone else decides to turn on the light.
It is much easier to blame a misread text message than to accept the fundamental vulnerability of loving another human being.
It truly is something to think about the next time you find yourself staring at 3 blinking dots on a screen. Thanks for joining us on this open mic deep dive. We will catch you next time.